Rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready to begin. My microphone is on. Thank you for reminding me. Okay, roll call. The secretary will call roll, please.
Commissioner Tolson.
Here.
Commissioner Hodge.
Here.
Commissioner Rice.
Here.
Vice Chairperson Castleberry.
Here.
Chairperson Mann.
Here. Approval of the agenda. May I have a motion for the approval of the agenda?
Move to approve the agenda.
That would be from Commissioner Hodge. And second is from
Tolson.
Commissioner Tolson. We will move for approval of the agenda, Commissioner Hodge, second by Commissioner Tolson. This is consent. Okay, agenda is approved. Approval of the minutes. I have a correction to the minutes. It's a simple correction. Page 2, it says Chairperson Hodge. We're going to demote him back to being Commissioner Hodge, and we'll put Chairperson Mann in his place. That would be my only correction. Do I have any other corrections? Do I have an approval of the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes.
Okay, Commissioner Hodge. And a second? Oh, sorry.
No, that was
Sorry. That was Vice Chair Castleberry. Made a motion to approve the minutes. Now the second.
Second.
And no, you can't. That would be Commissioner Hodge.
Correct.
Okay. Again, that will be consent approval. Declaration of conflict.
If any member of the Planning Commission may have a conflict of interest or any reason why that member must abstain from consideration of any matter on this agenda, he or she should so declare at this time.
Are there any declarations of conflict? Okay, full house. Moving forward, public statements. This is the time allotted for public statements on comments on all items other than public hearing items. Are there any members of the public that wish to make a public statement? Well, there's none in the chamber, and nothing on, no one on Zoom?
Ms. Ramirez will advise if there's any emails received after 5 p.m.
Okay. Do we have any emails received after 5 p.m.?
No, sir.
That was a negative from Ms. Ramirez.
Thank you very much. Is there any correspondence from the Deputy Director, City Planner?
No correspondence tonight, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Moving on, consent calendar. No items of consent calendar. No items of continued business. Moving on to new business. There is a new item of business why we're all here tonight. This is the time and place set for public hearing on the consideration of Planned Development Permit PDS 1065, a request to construct a 6-unit apartment building and a determination that the project is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act thereof. Are there any ex parte communications to report? Hearing no ex parte communications, may we have an oral report on this matter by staff?
Good evening, Chairman Mann and members of the Planning Commission. As you mentioned, this is a 6-unit apartment complex at 1740 Patricia Avenue by Bosniku, and we've been working with the applicant for a bit of time now. So we will like to have you consider tonight's project. Our senior planner, Jennifer Santos, will do the presentation. Jennifer.
Good evening.
The applicant is requesting approval to build a 3-story, 6-unit apartment building that is located on a 0.38 acre site that is located at 1740 Patricia Avenue. The Planning Commission is a decision maker for this request. The site is relatively flat and contains a vacant single-family residence that will be demolished if the project is approved to develop the site. The zoning for the site is residential high with a conditional zoning that allows a maximum density of 20 units per acre, and the applicant is proposing 6 units, which equates to 16 units per acre. The proposed 3-story apartment is surrounded by a single-family residence to the east and to the west, and 2-story multifamily residence to the north and east. Additionally, there is an existing 3-story condominium at the southeast corner that's adjacent to the site. This picture is of the existing site that shows a vacant single-family home with the existing 3-story condominium building beyond. The size of the units will range from 1,740 to 1,855 square feet and will include 2 bedrooms. Parking for the site will include 6 two-car enclosed garage spaces and 3 uncovered parking spaces. There's a parking space in the rear, and the 2 other parking spaces are over here. The proposed site meets the minimum parking requirements. A common recreational area will be located at the southeast corner of the site, and there will be a walkway that leads from Patricia Avenue along the eastern portion of the site all the way back to the recreation area. These are the private patios where the walkway that you have to access the gate to enter into the apartment units. A trash enclosure will be located here, and it will have a covered roof that will match in color and material of the proposed building. This shows a general layout of each floor. The first story will include the entry for the garage that will have direct access into an entry area. The second floor will consist of the kitchen, dining room, and a half bath. The bedrooms will be located on the 3rd floor, which include 2 bedrooms and 2 full bathrooms. The existing site consists of a combination of chain link, wood, and concrete masonry wall fencing. All of the chain link fencing will be replaced with a 6-foot-high concrete masonry wall that will have a plaster finish to match the proposed building. There is an existing concrete masonry wall located at the southeast corner of the site that will remain. The landscaping will consist of drought-tolerant plantings and will include 13 trees that will range from 24-inch to 36-inch box-sized trees. On-site amenities, as mentioned, will include in the common recreational area, will include a swing set, a barbecue, fire pit, and seating. Additionally, each unit will have private patios and 2nd-story balconies. The proposed architecture will consist of stucco walls with a flat concrete tile roofing, wood corbels, window and door trims, covered balconies, and stone veneer wainscot that will wrap around all 4 sides of the building. The exterior wall colors and textures of the building will consist of reddish brown and tan tones that will have a smooth plaster finish. This is a view from the driveway to the back of the units. As indicated in the staff report, staff has concerns about the massing of the building and articulation, making it inconsistent with the city's residential design guidelines. The applicant does provide variation with the building materials by using stucco, wood trim, and stone work at the base of the building on all 4 sides. Articulation is provided by staggering the units and incorporating covered balconies on the eastern and front elevations. Additionally, the applicant is proposing a 2nd and 3rd floor overhang that projects over the 1st floor. However, in staff's opinion, the overhang with the balconies creates a top-heavy appearance since the floor is more narrower than the 2nd and 3rd stories. The building design can be improved if columns or support details were constructed beneath the balconies on the east elevation to further ground these elements. Other elements could improve the design could include 2 or more of the following, and this would be consistent to condition A17 that we are recommending. To provide support columns or details below the balconies and overhangs, extend the trim around the windows and doors, awnings, to propose awnings in the front and middle windows, introduce roof gable balconies, modify the roof design in the middle projections of the building to a gable roof, enhance connection between the roof overhang and the ground level by adding additional stone or another design element. These are some of the newer townhome projects in the area that have added details like additional window and door trim, stone veneer columns, covered porches, and a combination of hip and gable roofs. As conditioned, the project complies with the findings and staff recommends approval of Plan Development Permit PDS 1065. And we are available for any questions. This concludes my presentation.
Do any commissioners have any questions of staff?
This is Commissioner Hodge.
Yes, Commissioner Hodge, please, go ahead.
Ms. Sanchez, apparently, as described in the materials, the developer is, or the applicant rather, is prepared to discuss providing some additional architectural design elements. Is that correct?
Yes.
Why hasn't that been done in advance of this meeting?
The applicant, because of how long it's taken, he was wanting to push forward to present his item tonight.
Okay, I'm going to ask the same question to the applicant. That was probably unfair to ask you, but I was curious if he had told you specifically why.
Hi, yes. This is Nick. I'm the applicant and owner and developer. The reason...
Commissioner,
Well, hang on. I'm sorry, we need to mute the applicant. Sorry, Nate, this is not your time to respond to the questions. This is really the only time for the commissioners to ask staff. You'll have your chance after you do your presentation, sir.
I apologize.
No worries whatsoever. Thank you very much. Sorry, Commissioner Hodge, other questions?
Yeah, I do. Ms. Santos, with respect to the trees that are on the west side of the building, if I'm reading this small print correctly, there's a 10.5-foot space between the wall, or the property line rather, and probably the closest portion of one of the doors. Is that accurate?
Are you talking about the east side?
West side. I'm sorry, you're correct, the east side.
Yeah, there's a 15-foot setback in between this building and the property line.
Okay, and then is there any overlap between this building and the building to the immediate east, in terms of overlap directly from, so that the front would be, the west side of this property would be looking into the west side of the adjacent building?
No.
There's no overlap.
Well, the third-story windows can look into the rear yard, but the applicant submitted a window analysis that doesn't have direct view into other windows.
We have a photo that you can bring up, right?
Yeah, on page 1, there's of the staff report. All right, so this project, the southernmost portion of this building will not, in essence, overlap the northern portion of the adjacent building. Is that accurate?
Maybe you can clarify your comment, was what you mean by overhang, Mr. Hodge?
Oh, yeah, sure. So Patricia Street is on the north side of this particular parcel. As the building goes back from the northern portions to the south, there's another building, sort of, it appears to be of a like height, although I'd like to have that confirmation as well. Is the building next door, the white one that's shown in this photograph, 2 or 3 stories?
That's 3 stories.
Okay. So what I'm getting at is, are any of the, in essence, the balconies going to be looking directly into, or I wish I was sitting there. If you held your hands up so that one was underneath the other, and you moved it up so that there was some adjacency or some overlap, is a part of this building going to be looking into a part of the other building?
So to the immediate east, on the front half of the lot, is a single-family dwelling, which is 1 story. And then further back of this proposed site, it kind of comes in line with the back half of the white 3-story building. So that'll be more in line with the white, but the front half of the site would be 3-story building proposed adjacent to the 1-story house to the east.
All right, so all right, from what I understand, as we look at this photograph right here, that 1-story home is currently vacant and is going to be removed, correct?
Correct.
So then a 3-story building is going to be put in its place. And I take a look at that particular site graphic right there, and it seems to me that you may have 1 or 2 or 3 units from the proposed building that will be immediately east-west of some of the units for the existing multi-story project that is actually, I assume it's on Haywood Street. Is that accurate?
Yes, that is accurate.
Will there be overlap? So that a portion, if you were standing at the doorway of one of the units on the southernmost portion of this applicant's building, that they would in essence be looking at the wall of the building directly to the east.
Yes, that is correct from what I understand your question.
How much overlap would there be? 1 unit, 2 units, 3?
I believe there's 5 units on the Haywood Street property, so there's probably 2.5 units of overlap with the existing building. Okay. And looking at site plan sheet A102, it looks like 2 1/4 of the new homes, or 3 would overlap onto the property of the Haywood Street project, where that block wall is existing.
And the Haywood Street project is, as far as I can see from both the overhead photograph and then the design graphic, the driveway is on the east side of that parcel, and the homes are on the west side of the parcel. I'm going to ask you if you can estimate for me the setback between the shared wall versus the easternmost portion of that existing building.
So yeah, as per the site plan A102, there's a 25-foot offset between the wall of the new project and the wall of the existing project, the building walls, not the property line block wall, but the actual unit walls. There's a 10 foot on one side and 15 or so on the other.
So I apologize for taking so long to get to this, but the point I was trying to drive at is now you're going to have some trees that are going to be between the proposed new building and the eastern wall, and it's only 15 feet. So I can imagine that the tree is going to probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 to 7 feet away from the proposed building. And I don't know about these trees. Are they going to start dangling over that wall? Are they going to infringe upon, the property that's next to it? And I think this all becomes an issue because both of the buildings have opposite, the driveways are in essence on opposite sides. So on this particular project, the driveway is on the western side. The other project, the driveway is on the eastern side, and as a result, the buildings are very close to one another. I'm a little concerned about the orientation of the buildings, proximity to the two buildings, and then the screening landscaping. But I guess we can get to that as we go. So I have no further questions.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Tolson, Vice Chair Castleberry, any questions?
Nothing for me.
Nothing from me.
Commissioner Hodge? Commissioner Rice? We'll get it
It's easy
straight.
to do, isn't it?
Yes.
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay, I have no questions at this time. Let's go ahead and we'll open the public testimony portion of the hearing. Would the applicant like to present the project? I'm assuming yes. So Nick, as soon as you're with us, go ahead.
Hi, I think it's better to Mr. Nero to present the whole project because he has all the drawings.
My screen looks, oh, everybody's screen looks the same. Hang on a minute, we're going to get you online here.
Mr. Nehru could turn on his camera and microphone, then we could proceed with that.
Good evening, Mr. Patel. I am the architect for the project. And mainly I was going to represent the changes that we are working on based upon the condition number A17. So can I share my screen?
Yes.
Okay. 1 second. Okay. So this is the revised rendering of the project that we have been working with the planning department and is still in the process at the moment. The first thing that we did was we increased the size of this molding, which goes all around the building on the garage side. The next one is at the front, which is you are facing Patricia Street. We changed the roof. All these roofs, they are gable roofs now from hip roof. As per the comments from the planning department, we also increased the height of this element here and created something like a column. Now there was a comment regarding adding the columns underneath here, this bottom here, but we cannot do that because if you do that, then we are going to be encroaching into the handicap parking, so we are not able to do that. The other thing we did was on the other side, which is the main entrance side, we also changed the roofs to gable roofs. There was a comment regarding adding the columns under the balcony. We have not done that. The reason being, if you do that, then the patio that we have is going to look really small. The other thing we have done is on the back side, we have duplicated the same element that we have in the front. So these are the changes that we have worked out with the planning department. The other thing, I think the commissioner has a question regarding those setbacks. What we have is we have about 25 feet between the windows of both of the buildings. And I think that distance is quite enough that nobody can look through into somebody's privacy. And I think other than that, I don't have anything else to explain. And I think Nick may be able to explain something else about the project, why he wants to do the project and so on. Thank you. Anybody has any question?
Okay. So are there any questions of the applicant?
I do.
Okay, Commissioner Tolson.
Mr. Patel, can you explain why on the east side you cannot do the columns? I didn't really understand why you couldn't do the columns.
On the east side, which is, we are looking at the east side right now. Well, what it is we have a patio in the front. Now, if you bring down the column, okay, the patio is going to look really small. It's a visual thing. It's going to divide the patio into 3 parts.
Thank you.
And you want to have a bigger patio, obviously.
That was my only question.
I have a question.
Okay, Commissioner Hodge?
What is the anticipated mature girth of the trees that are intended to be on this side of the building, the east side?
I'm not sure because I'm not a landscape architect, so I won't be able to answer the question. I really don't know the answer.
I think that's because
the
the tree is going to be between the wall and the building, which is a minimum of 15 feet. And I assume that those trees, when mature, are going to be broader than 15 feet. Some of it's going to be hanging over the wall, which sometimes that happens. But what I'm curious about is, given that particular issue, and given the proximity, the location of the balconies on the building, was any thought given to having to flip the building and have the building more oriented on the western side of the parcel and the driveway to the garage areas on the eastern side of the building?
No, we have never thought about that.
You see any advantage to that?
Well, it doesn't really make a big difference because since we have the distance between the 2 properties of the buildings, if somebody else will be on the other side, you will have the same issue again for the neighbor, whoever develops the next property.
I'm just trying to wonder if that makes greater sense and provides a greater I'm not sure exactly the word I'm looking for, but just coordinates with the other building and limits the amount of privacy issue and enhances the quality of the building.
I'm sorry, can I answer that question?
Sure.
Hi, good evening. This is Nick. Well, the reason that I understand your point that we switched the building, but if we're going to switch the building, we have to flip the building like about 180 degrees, which means all the balconies go to the other side because per fire department, we're not allowed to have any balcony on the driveway side. So if we do that, we're going to have the same problem on the other side. So we're basically just switching the place of the building is not going to rectify the problem for us.
Yeah, that's one of the difficulties of a remote meeting like this. I meant flip the whole thing so that the driveway would be on the opposite side where it is now. The building would be flipped so that you would in essence have a negative, or rather the exact opposite of what you have, but it would comply because the balconies would not be over the driveway again. You would have the building.
What's going to happen?
Listen. You would not have the balconies over the driveway because the driveway would be on the eastern side and the balconies would be on the western side.
And then what's going to happen if the next door neighbor wants to do the development and we got to do the trees? It's going to be precisely the same situation we have right now.
And I would hope that when that ever ultimately happens, that whatever persons are on the planning commission or otherwise would do the same thing with that project there, as opposed to just throw our hands up and say, well, what the heck? I mean, for being concerned about what the next property owner might do on the western side of this parcel, let's see if we can't get some coordination between the existing one, the proposed one, and then we'll deal with the future one as that occurs. I would also think that you would probably want to have these balconies with a western exposure versus an eastern exposure looking directly into another building.
Yeah, I understand that, but can we find a better solution? Can we change basically the type of trees we're using over there so they're not going to hang over the neighbors?
Well,
so that is going to resolve your concern.
I'm really not trying to redesign your whole building on the fly, and I appreciate that. I think that's something that needs to be looked at, and I hope that staff has that answer. Because I frankly am not an arborist, and I don't know how big those trees get.
Well, what we can do, we can talk to our architectural designer and the landscape architect and we can just tell her, give us something that basically meets your criteria, and it's not going to hang over the neighbors. It's not going to be grow. The trunk is not going to be too big, and then we don't have to move the building anymore.
Can you answer my question or maybe you think you have, and I apologize if you did, and I'm hearing you a little more clearly than the other gentleman. I was picking up some echo when he was speaking. It wasn't anything that he was doing. It was just, for whatever reason, I was getting some echo. But the questions raised by Ms. Santos, I tend to agree with her, and what I'm curious about, because the materials that I have in the staff report, I'm curious, I'm just sort of lost a little bit. The proposed, do you believe that the project, as it sits today, as you just presented it, responds to all of the issues that Ms. Santos brought up in the staff report?
Well, let me just address one by one, if I will. One of the things that they recommended, they were talking about the awning for the windows, some of the windows. With all due respect, I'm doing buildings for the past 20 years. I'm a developer myself, and God will, if I want to do any retail or any shopping center, I'll install the awning for the windows, not for the house, for the building. The second thing that she was concerned about, and they recommended to go with a post for under the pop-up balconies. As you see on the final design, we're trying to provide, making that like a 6 feet wooden fence for every entrance to make it like a private patio for each entrance, for each building. And then if we got to put the basically posts for each one of those balconies, it's going to obstruct the majority area of that patio. And then it's going to be basically the children want to play around and they can't do that. And I don't remember the other one.
Could you put up the western elevation of the project, of the proposed building?
This one?
Oh, there's the north, I think.
Oh, this is the west, correct?
Okay.
That's the west side, yes.
This is the west side. You understand that our code requires 360 architecture, and so that the building doesn't appear to be one thing on one side and something entirely different on the other. That there's our obligation, guidelines that refer to things as ornamentation and the sort of surrounding design element. So what I see here is the first floor. It appears to have the garage doors, and there appears to be some stonework. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, it is.
And then above it, you have these white lines. I'm not exactly sure what those are.
They're like the bands. They're like moving bands.
Right. Is that it?
Well, yes. And with the respect to the fire department, we already have some pop-ups in those areas. Every other building, they already had a small balcony. And then even we tried to do the Juliet balcony, but the fire department, they said that because the whole driveway is pretty long, they're going to need some sort of area in the setbacks so they can bring their hammer, the ladder, and they can basically rotate it. So trust me, we go back and forth for like about 6 months to resolve this issue, and finally, fire department won because we had to cancel all our balconies on the driveway side.
Well, I get it, and I'm not suggesting that you should necessarily have balconies on this side. What I'm looking for is ornamentation and architectural elements.
Like what? What do you have in mind?
Well, I'm not going to design your building, sir, but at the same time, I'm curious I just want to know if you think that this meets the requirement. To me, it looks rather monolithic. I see that there are different colors, and I see these bands, and then at the very bottom, of course, we have the stonework, which is the stonework is nice. The roof, I'm not exactly sure what it's kind of difficult to see in this two-dimensional environment. What the roof is, how the roof is broken up. I think that there's something there. Now that from this angle, I can see it a little bit better. But it just seems a little pale to me, is all I'm saying. So what you have here is you've got some stonework on the bottom. You have these two bands, And that's the end of the road when it comes to any kind of ornamentation or architectural elements. I see that there is some minor articulation with the buildings coming off just a little bit different, and that's enhanced by the color differential. But and other than on the other side, other than the balconies, I don't see much on that vein either. So those are my questions. I mean, I'm not trying to be overly judgmental, although ultimately it becomes my judgment and the judgment of the other commissioners. And so I agreed with Ms. Santos's analysis, and I really was hoping to gain your thoughts and opinions and explanation of why you think this qualifies. So I just want to make sure I'm reading this correctly. What we have is we have the stonework adjacent to probably maybe 3.5, 4 feet of stonework. You have the bands, and you have the minor articulation with the buildings being slightly offset as it goes across. Correct?
Well, it's like about 2 feet. Yeah, recess.
2 feet. Okay, that's good. And then the color differential. It's not all one color, which of course is a plus.
Yeah.
All right. Very
And then
good.
if you take a look at the first floor and the second floor, they're a different color. And these are basically all done based on the planning commissioner, the planning advice. So we try to work as much as we can for the past couple of years with them.
Would it change your costs any? Well, of course it would, because you'd have to redesign it. But I still am perplexed as to why it was deemed more appropriate to put the driveway on the west side than the east side, when you have almost half your building, or 40% of your building, overlapping this other building, and you could have avoided that by just flipping the location of the driveway. I have no further questions.
Okay, moving on. Vice Chair Castleberry or Commissioner Tolson, any questions of the applicant?
I have one more set of questions. If Ms. Santos can put the screen that shows the design issue with the solutions for condition A17 on the screen, please. That's the one. Perfect.
Perfect.
And Ms. Santos talked about having potentially solutions of using 2 of these options. Can we ask the applicant which 2 they plan to do?
The modified roof design is already, the enhanced connection between the roof overhead, top-heavy appearance, and then progressive support columns. Well, listen, I don't really have any problem. I already put the trim around the windows. We already have a trim around the windows for the exterior, and I don't know what this one is already here, but we can put the trim like a molding around the windows for exterior part. Awning is a definitely no for me. I'm sorry, with all due respect, it's not retail.
Not which ones you're not going to do. Which ones are the 2 that you will do?
Well, the extended trim around the windows is one of them that I don't have a problem doing it. And provide support column for, not the columns, the modified roof design. Projection of building cable for enhanced connection between the ground level. I can enhance connection between roof overhang and ground level. I don't know what they have in mind when it comes with this suggestion, but I'm willing to work with these 2 items.
Thank you very much. That's all for me.
Commissioner Rice?
Sure. I just, going back to over the side that had the driveway with the garage doors, did you ever think about, and I'm not an architect, but things like fake shutters or an inset tile or just decorative ironwork, not necessarily a Juliet balcony, but maybe some decorative ironwork or inset tile, fake shutters, something to kind of break up this long expands?
Well, by the time that we do that exterior trim work around the windows, that will definitely will give it more characteristic form. But if you want, I can put that like a shutter around some of the windows instead of that molding. I don't have any problem with that because they already said that for the front facade of the building. And if you take a look at it for the front, we're already doing some shutters around the windows. But the problem is some of the windows, if you take a look at them, they're too close to each other. And then if you wanted to put two shutters on the side, the centerpiece is going to be empty out. So that is going to be a little odd looking.
Yeah, I'm just trying to help you out, but even just inset tile or something like that, we do have buildings with that, or decorative ironwork.
Well, the tile
just
is
to
not,
break up
not
these
really,
units.
it's not it's not my favorite part to do when the tile is in the height, especially. It needs to be completely secured in just to prevent any fall and then hurting people.
Yeah.
So that's a bit out of the question for me because the safety is a major concern for me. And the third story, especially when you have 3 stories.
Okay. And do you have one last thing for you? I didn't see it in the, but do you have any bike racks?
Bike rack.
Bike rack. So a place for somebody to put their bike if they were going to visit somebody at this apartment complex. Just simple question.
Yes, we do. We have it in the back area where the barbecue area is going to be.
Oh, okay.
Or that's just a community area. We already have some bike racks over there because we're providing, if you take a look at it, in this area, we have barbecue, we have sitting areas, and we basically do have a bike rack here.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
Sure.
Okay, this is Chairman Mann. I got a couple of questions. On the site plan that we have, it looks like it's a different color, obviously, from your screen sharing. Your screen sharing almost looks like each level, 1, 2, and 3, are different colors, where ours, each unit is one color. So is it, I'm assuming that each unit is going to be a different color and not each floor, correct? Because your screen sharing looks like a weird color.
Yes, sir, it is.
Yes, it is that each floor is a different color, or each unit is a different color?
Each unit is a different color.
Okay, that's one question. The site plan that's up in front of us right now, does the walkway go down the entire east side of the building to the recreation area? Does that loop, or does that continue to the driveway side of it? Because I can't tell whether or not that landscaping or that walkway goes all the way to where it's accessible at the very, would be the southern end.
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding your question.
Okay, so you have the walkway, pedestrian walkway, so the people to get to the front doors all the way down the east side of the building, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that goes all the way back down to what would be the common areas?
Yes, sir.
On the west side of the common area where you have the 2 trees and it looks like a guest parking spot, that is open for people to go from there into the driveway area, correct?
Yes, sir. We don't have any gates over there.
That's not a gate, okay. Exterior hose bibs for people to wash their car, is that inside the garage or is that outside the garage?
For each unit, we provide one outside in the front of the main entry by the patio, and it's going to be one inside the garage. But I'm not a huge fan of building basically people washing their car inside the house.
So there is a hose bib in the garage near the roll-up door, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Obviously, I have the same reservations and thoughts on the articulation. Perhaps something can be done, or something will be done, whether you do something on the alternating windows, whether you do some kind of shutter, some kind of metal, some kind of wrought iron, whether you consider on the units that pop out, maybe run the stone up from the ground all the way up to the top, just to kind of give it a little bit more definition. It looks like there's some articulation by, I don't know, a foot or so, but it does look like the west side of it is just a large, flat building, almost to the point where you have to get up to it and look at it at a angle, 45-degree angle, whatever the case is, to actually see that there's that pop out and that there's some articulation. The side that have the balconies, obviously you have some great articulation there. I think it's a little bit short on the driveway side. And I understand that there's certain limitations, but I got to be convinced that there's something that can be done a little bit more there. There's another question I had. Outside did that. Maybe I answered all my questions. And then obviously Commissioner Hodge did bring up, and very good. That's why he is the senior ranking member on here. He comes up with all these great
No,
ideas.
it's Commissioner Rice.
I'm sorry?
Rice. Commissioner Rice is the man.
I'm actually the, yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Ah, sorry. Okay. My apologies. We'll just call him the senior.
Fine.
Okay. As far as moving the building physically to the other side, and then when I just looked at the plot map, I mean, we can certainly make it driveway to driveway for the other buildings on it, so I understand Commissioner Hodges' concern that there is overlap at the back side of the building. I'm not sure. Flipping the building may or may not be an easy task to do, and that may or may not accomplish the goal that we actually want to do, but that is something certainly for us to consider. Okay, I have no other questions at this time. Any other commissioners have any other questions?
Not of the applicant.
Of the applicant, sorry.
Not of the applicant, no.
Okay. Do we receive any?
Can I add something?
I'm sorry?
Can I add something at the end?
By all means, yes.
With the respect of the commissioner about the moving the building, I really like the idea, but I wish that it would have been brought up to us like about 2 years ago when we started this project, and during duration of these 2 years. But to be honest with you, right now, moving the whole thing architectural-wise and everything, and all the soft costs is going to be unbearable again to redo everything. And to be honest with you, and I mean, I really like that idea. To be honest with you, I wish that, but right now it's a completely undoable task. Damn. I mean,
Okay,
yeah,
understood.
I really like that.
Okay, moving on, thank you. Do we receive any requests from members of the public to make a statement during this time?
We received no Zoom comments. We could check if we received any emails after 5 o'clock tonight.
Okay, do we receive any emails after 5 o'clock?
No, we did not.
And that would be from,
That'd be from Senior Management Analyst Julia Ramirez.
thank you very much. Are there any comments from staff regarding statements made during public hearing?
Jen, do you-
Just in regards to the trees would have to be maintained by the property management company to make sure that they do not overhang into the adjacent property.
Okay,
And Chairman Mann, just to reference the condition A17, if we were going to go into that direction, we suggested 2 items off that list, or the catch-all in the condition says, or other mutual design elements acceptable by the deputy director or city planner as far as components to enhance the design. So some of the other suggestions that came up could be included in that condition if you so choose.
let's see, we had no comments during public statements. I guess just for rounding out, would the applicant like to respond to any of the comments regarding statements made during the public hearing? Any further
No, at this point, no.
Okay. If there are no further questions, then we'll close the public testimony portion of the hearing. Are there any comments or questions from members of the Planning Commission?
I do have staff, but I'd like to wait I've monopolized enough. I want to defer to other commissioners before I ask questions.
Okay. Commissioner Tolson,
Sure.
this is your time for
My-
questions or comments?
Okay, you got it. I got some comments. I'm questioning why we have this project before us when we seem like we're a little short on having a project that's approval worthy. And the staff brought up some issues and said that these are concerns of ours, and yet we should have those concerns taken care of before we approve or disapprove a project. I sincerely like Commissioner Hodges' thought of flipping the building around in the parking lot. That seems like it might be horrendously cost-wise, but at the very minimum, just to have the project to continue so that they can fix the issues that we have concerns of. That's it for me.
Commissioner Castleberry.
I would echo Commissioner Tolson's sentiments. I feel like we have a project before us that isn't complete, ready for our approval. I think staff highlighted some excellent concerns. I think that Commissioner Hodge also has some excellent concerns on this project. I understand that the applicant wants approval, but I feel like rushing the process in order to get this project approved. I mean, it's not in the best interest of the neighbors nor our city. We do have our guidelines for a reason, and at this point, I'm curious to hear what the rest of the commissioners have to say.
Okay. Commissioner Rice.
Chairman Mann?
Yes.
Chairman Mann? Yeah, I actually had a couple of questions before we sort of get too deep into the process, and so maybe I should go ahead with these questions beforehand.
Please.
All right, Ms. Sanchez, could you pull up? We're currently looking at, or I'm looking at, the conceptual landscape plan. Is that what you see as well?
Yeah, we're seeing the same thing.
Yes.
Okay. So the green trees on the east side of the project, I take it that those are the gold medallion trees, correct?
What did it call?
They're medallion trees.
Yeah.
They're the ones that have the yellow flowers.
Yeah, I'm okay.
Is that what we're looking at for the green trees on the east side of the building?
Along the east side?
Correct.
They're
Yeah.
the medallion trees.
Yeah, the gold medallion trees. It's on the.
Okay. I'm looking at the part of the staff report that provides the conceptual landscape plan, but it also has the photographs of the trees as they mature. And the gold medallion tree looks like as it matures in this particular circumstance, there's a photograph of it in front of a two-story building, which is exactly where the balconies would be on this side of the building. And this tree is as much east-west, left to right as it is north to south. So, it's a very broad tree. And if you start trimming it, if the property management companies trim it so it doesn't go into the other project, and it also trims it so it doesn't get into the balconies, it's not going to look like a tree at all. And so I was curious why the idea of using gold medallion trees was there, because according to the photograph that's depicted in the landscape conceptual plan, this is a very broad spread tree. Am I reading that? Am I looking at that correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
And
then
Commissioner Hodge,
yes.
The trees are presented as part of the conceptual landscape plan. The exact species have not been fully vetted through our landscape architect until the final landscape review process after project approval. That does not mean you could suggest that if this project moves forward, that we add a condition to look for more appropriate trees in those locations, or to omit trees or adjust the setting so our final landscape architect could look for those items. So it does not mean that exact species has to be planted based on what we're seeing tonight.
Fair enough. That was the last of my question, and now I'll go back to deferring to Commissioner Rice.
I'm not that uncomfortable with the trees because it's that species. Okay.
Microphone, please.
Got me. All right, that species is basically just a different type of crepe myrtle, and so it's one of the few trees that would actually fit in such a small space without getting too. It can be trained and still look relatively good, even though I'm not really a big fan of crepe myrtles, but that would work in that spot. I have no other questions at the moment, though. My big thing is I don't necessarily think that the project needs to be flipped. I know I'm in the minority on this. I don't see the need necessarily to flip it as long as, the landscaping is kept up. And, but I do have a problem with the articulation on the driveway side. I just don't think that that's ready for prime time. But flipping the whole project 2 years into it, I think is, and even so, I somewhat agree with the applicant that it just, I don't know. I think the project where it is okay, but I just don't like the side with the driveway.
Okay, I'll go next if that's okay.
By all means, please.
Yeah. First of all, I don't think that what we've seen on the design elements meets the standards of what it is that we've required. I don't like the idea of A17 for two reasons. The first one is I don't know why it limits itself to two. I also worry that there isn't if two of the items don't address design or architectural element issue on the east side, then we're not having the primary concern resolved. There's precedent for asking the developer to come back and show us what they've got as opposed to leaning it on staff, and that precedent was last Planning Commission meeting. We took a look at that industrial building that had the storage facility element to it. We had taken a look at it and decided that it was way too monolithic on at least one side of the building, that it didn't have the design elements that are required, and instead of turning it over to staff, we had them bring it back to us. I think it was in 2 or 3 weeks, and we took a look at it, and the project was better. As far as holding up, so in that case, we said, okay, you're going to need to do something in addition to this. We asked them to come back. They came back. They met the standards, and they went on their way. And I was very pleased with the result of that particular effort by the Planning Commission, and think that it will be a much better building for the city and more aesthetic. As far as requiring some more design elements, the biggest example of that I can think of is the very large condominium project, 300 plus units at Madera and Los Angeles Street. That project came in. It had a number of other issues having to do with circulation, et cetera, on the inside. But one of the big issues was it was bland as all get out in certain ways, and there's no integration of the sides of the building that suggested to you that was really the same building. And that's essentially what we have here, and I don't think that the two bands or the small rockwork thing at the bottom meet the standard. So I would rather not impose or agree to A17. I would rather have them come back and show it to us. I would like to make sure that we have those design elements and architectural features throughout the building on each side, rather than just saying, okay, you've got to come up arbitrarily with two of the things that have been requested. I'd like to see them come up with more than two. I'd like the building to come back and meet and be in a position where we didn't meet some number, but rather we could know that it meets the design elements that we've always required of applicants and have applied to buildings over the last, since I've been on the commission, which at this point is 8 years. And I once again count the one at Madera and Los Angeles Street. As far as the flipping goes, I mean, it surprises me that they were like this. And I'm thinking, I mean, I don't know. I don't have, training in computers for this kind of work, but I got to believe that flipping this thing would be just a matter of somebody sitting down with a computer and saying, okay, and creating in essence the opposite, just flipping one side to the other. You could even leave certain things, you just duplicate it, but opposite. But if that can't be done, and if it would be way too much, and the applicant rather wants to come back with the modifications, which is what I think where we're going, then there you go. I just think that this would be a much better project, be better for the people that live there, would be just a lot better project that had been thought through from that perspective. So I agree with what's been said before. I don't think that and what I've said before as well, I don't think the architectural and design elements are there. I would like to see the improvements. I'd like to see Ms. Santos' other items addressed. I don't want to limit it to A17, and just as we did with the project, the light industrial and storage facility project, ask them to come back and show it to us with the kinds of design elements that meet the standards within Simi Valley.
So in other words, Commissioner Hodge, you would be in favor of asking the developer for a continuance. Is that correct?
That's correct. Just exactly as we did with the last applicant on, oh gosh, I can't remember, was that Industrial Street?
Yeah, it was on Industrial Street. Do we lose you, Commissioner Hodge?
No, I'm here. I'd rather see the applicant, bring it back. I don't think that A17 is sufficient. And, I'd like to see the design elements and the 360 architecture compliance so that we can approve it exactly as we did for that industrial project.
Okay. So my question, so far, two of the commissioners have referenced if the developer would be willing to do two of the items under A17. There's nothing in here about two. That's not an option, correct? I mean, that's just I guess a verbal proposal.
Actually, it isn't the proposal. It says two if you chose that condition.
Okay, maybe I'm just missing that in.
It's the third line of A17.
Oh, the actual A17 is what you're referring to.
Yes, on page 20.
Got it, okay. I was looking at the little blurb that you guys had. Okay, now I got it. Okay, thank you very much for clarifying that, appreciate it. Rotating the building certainly has its advantages. It also has its disadvantages, because no matter what you do with the building, in the southern part of the building, part of it's going to overlap the other building or be next to the other building. If you look at the floor plans, you have bedrooms on both the east and west side. So even if you turn the building 180 degrees, you'll be further away from the building because you have the driveway, but you still have a bedroom that will be overlooking that. And instead of the dining room or instead of the family room, you'll have the kitchen, dining room. But again, I guess part of it is you'll have a 30-foot, I'm assuming is that a 30-foot wide on the west-hand side? From the garage to the wall, is that 30 feet as a rough number? Okay, maybe 25, but 30. So you go in theory from 15 to 25, so you're further away, but you're still going to have, bottom line is, people overlooking the last couple units here into the building that's on Haywood. So I could go either way with that as far as turning the building. If cost is a huge factor and we're down this far, I probably wouldn't push that, but I certainly will push for greater articulation on the garage side. I don't know if I'd be comfortable with 2 of the items in A17. I would rather see the applicant come back with what their own vision is to do either 2 or more of those items. My understanding at this point, we can either vote for approval, denial, or ask the applicant to come back voluntarily as a continuance to a date to be determined tonight.
It could be a date determined or a date uncertain.
I would say if we can determine a date, I think the applicant, since he would like to, it seems that he's the one that's pushed this to this point, I think he'd rather get a date, if we can pick a date, that's going to work for him and work for us, assuming everybody has their calendars readily available. If not, we'll just have to go to a date to be determined between the applicant and the city for planning purposes. That's if, and is the applicant online?
Yes, sir, I'm right here.
Okay, sorry, thank you, sir. Are you willing at this point to accept a continuance to modify what we're asking for as a planning commission to come back with some changes to a date either that we can determine tonight, or you can work out with staff and we'll expedite that, your return, as quickly as it can be scheduled?
Well, we greatly appreciate it if we can just basically set the date tonight, and I will definitely come back with more articulation about all this, basically the garage side, even though if I have to work with more items than A17 items for you guys. But I'd rather you know the date tonight, please.
Mr. Gibson, are we in a position to be able to give a date?
So we have meetings coming up on 11/4. If that may be too quick to get that turnaround and review, we could either push that to 11/18 or followed by December 2nd if we go date certain. The other option is if we put it for 11/4 and we're still not ready to come back, we could do a continuance that night for another continuance.
Then would it be we're not ready or he's not ready, the applicant not ready?
Well, if
We'll be ready.
we have to study the revisions.
Okay.
So, and prepare the follow-up report and so on. So if we get that done for November 4th, we could set that date, and then we'll see what happens.
I mean, without pinning you down, that's less than 30 days, so assuming we give him 2 weeks to get the revisions done, gives you 2 weeks to review. I don't know if that's enough time for the applicant or even enough time for the city. The 4th may be pushing it, maybe just go with the 18th.
Well, maybe the best thing to do would be to ask the applicant how much time he needs, ask Mr. Gibson how much time he needs, and then set a date.
Okay?
Well, I think about 2 to 3 weeks for us is going to be enough. But if it's going to be on November 18, I think for certainly we should have something.
Did he say the 18th?
The 18th. Now, how long will it take the city to review just to make sure everybody's on a fair game here? 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
Yeah, some of that's concurrent review while we're working with the person, so that should give us ample time. I know the prior continuance got a little close, so I
Okay.
think this is a pretty good turnaround.
So let's go ahead and schedule it then for the 18th, and we'll ask the applicant to have
November 18, right?
November 18th, yes? And we'll
Okay.
ask the applicant to work concurrently with the city, but certainly have something to them no later than, we'll just pick November 1st as a rough time frame.
Well, we'll communicate with the applicant as far
Got it.
as what to get us our items.
Okay, so this will be the manner of PDS 1065 will be continued into November 18th. All parties agree?
Yes.
Works for me.
Thank you very much.
Sorry,
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
hang on a second, don't leave. Mr. City Attorney, what's the question? Okay, so the applicant agrees to November 18th for the continuance, correct?
Yes, sir, I do.
Perfect. City?
Correct.
Mr. Gibson? For us, by consent or consensus, Planning Commission all agrees to that as well. So we'll move the PDS 1065 to November 18th. Thank you. With that, I'm assuming there's no other new business, correct? Nothing snuck up on me here?
No other new business.
Okay, oral communications reports. Does staff have anything to report?
Yes, Chairman Mann and members of the commission, you should have been provided your October 21st, 2020 tentative agenda. That involves a conditional use permit and specific plan amendment for a warehouse distribution facility located at 400 National Way.
And 400 National Way, that's the way, way, way old Gibraltar Savings Building, the Bank of America building up on the hill?
That is correct, north of the freeway off of Madera Road.
Got it. Thank you. Do any of the planning commissioners have anything to report?
No.
Makes it easy. Mobile Home Rent
I do.
Mediation Board?
I do, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, sorry, please.
Dodgers 4-1 bottom of the fifth.
Can you repeat that because I didn't hear it?
Dodgers 4-1 bottom of the fifth.
Thank you very much for that report. The advantages of doing Zoom at home, evidently. Okay, Mobile Home Rent Mediation Board.
We have no items tonight.
Tree Advisory Board.
No items.
With that, that concludes this meeting of October 7th, and the next meeting will be October 21st. Thank you. Have a good night. Go Dodgers.